Peter is here. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And you wrote a great piece about it in the Mail on Sunday. Basically saying you couldn't find the passage in the Bible he was referring to.
I can find it, but it doesn't say what he seems to think it says. And actually, it's much sterner than he appears to think it says, because it's actually the point at which Christ says that at the day of judgment, he will confront people and he will say, I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, you didn't give me anything to drink. I was without shelter and you didn't take me in.
Right.
And they will say, well, when did we do this? He said, well, in so much as you did this unto the least of anybody you ever met, you did it unto me. Right. Depart into eternal punishment. I'm not sure that Justin Welby believes in eternal punishment. It's not a very fashionable view among the hierarchy of the Church of England or most other churches these days. But the thing is, it's all to do with personal conduct. Do you actually, when you see somebody in pitiable circumstances, do you help them or do you not? And this is quite different from a national policy. And if you read, and I recommend everybody to do this, if you read the House of Lords debate in which Archbishop Welby took part last week, it's absolutely fascinating. There are several contributions, notably from Lord Green of Dennington, who used to be head of Migration Watch, and also Peter Lilly, coming up with figures. And what Lord Green points out is that in the past 20 years, the population of this country has increased by 7 million.
Yes.
That is absolutely colossal.
It's an extraordinary
It's way beyond anything that's ever happened before. It's an enormous social, economic change about which nobody was consulted, and it's continuing.
Yes.
And the government, this government, which is making a great fuss about the people in boats crossing the Channel, is not doing anything to stop it. The population is going up and up. This isn't what Jesus was referring to when he said, you didn't take me in.
Right.
There is no obligation for a country to take in 7 million people from other countries.
And that's just the beginning.
It's not being done for that purpose either. It's not being done to save them. No. Many of them may well end up. I don't know. It's not who's done the work. Many of them may well end up destitute when they get here. I don't know. That's a different question. But the fact is, governments have encouraged them to come here, partly because they've decided to turn this country into a low-wage, cheap labour economy, which it wasn't before.
Which nobody can explain, because no matter how many times you get Tory MPs on to say, why is the Tory government pursuing this policy, they can't explain it. They can't say, well, it's because we want to pursue it, or because it's happening by accident. They don't seem to have a valid explanation.
Well, this seems to me to be the only one that works. I mean, there is no doubt that our economy has changed. We used to have many, many more highly paid, skilled jobs for people, and now we don't. And now our economy increasingly is a low-wage, unskilled economy for which you need large numbers of people who are paying tax, they hope, who can support the enormous welfare state and other provisions which we have. But of course they don't support them as well as they used to, because the strain on social services, the health service, the transport system, the schools, from this increased population is enormous.
It is.
Especially because it's largely concentrated in the Midlands and the southeast of England, and therefore in all those areas it's very heavy, and it's felt as mass migration is always felt mainly by the poor, because it's in poor areas that migrants usually settle.
Yes.
So it doesn't trouble the Archbishop of Canterbury. Though I think to his credit, at one point he did take a family in to Lambeth Palace. It doesn't trouble most.
Well, there's quite a bit of room in Lambeth Palace.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I don't. Personal action is what the Christian religion is about. It's not about telling other people what to do. It's about what you do yourself.
And I'm not judging people whether they take people in or not. I'm not one of those who says, well, how many are you taking?
If they lecture me and say you should be ashamed of yourself for opposing this, then I do take issue with them if they don't themselves make personal efforts. If they do make personal efforts, then obviously they have a standpoint from which they can, if they wish, criticise others. Though again, what I also pointed out is the Bible is very much against, and this particular parable of the man who just simply goes into the temple and says, "Forgive me, I'm a miserable sinner," and the noisy Pharisee who goes about making a great fuss. I give tithes of my income to everybody. I'm terribly generous. I'm good, and makes a public show of his charity. And he benefits in no way from this as far as the Christian religion is concerned. So noisy charity, noisy do-gooding,
Yes.
and not Christian.
No,
it's done privately.
But also, it's one thing to say, you know, it's the right thing to do, it's the Christian thing to do, to give succour to somebody who needs it, to give shelter and all of that. That's fine, but it's not government policy, neither should it be. Also, an awful lot of the people who are coming illegally on the small boats are not coming here to seek shelter because they had shelter where they were.
Well, there is that point too, but the point that I've got to keep making this point. The people who are coming here in boats, although it's very alarming that we can't control our own front door, they're a very small proportion of the number of people coming here.
Yes.
And that
but it all adds up.
The other point in Peter Lilly's speech, which he makes, is the whole issue of asylum. Many European countries reject far more claims of asylum than we do.
Yeah.
And yet, although it seems to me to be fairly obvious, looking at our system, that our system is pretty gullible when it comes to claims of asylum. Prove it. How can you? Somebody tells a story about how he's been persecuted thousands of miles away in a country we can't investigate. What do? But there it is. We tend to give in the end. My colleague Sue Reed on the Daily Mail has done a lot of work on this. She's been to the asylum courts and seen how the process works. In other countries, the authorities say, no, actually, we're not accepting this claim. Away with you. And the funny thing is that you don't hear any of the generally pro-EU liberals who say that we're too tough, complaining that the other EU countries which do this are too
actually deport more people.
Are actually too tough.
But it's an interesting point, and the numbers specifically are very telling about the way that the attitude in this country is, because the main reason I'm led to believe that so many people get accepted for asylum here is because it takes so long that by the time they've actually reached the point of no return, if you like, they are just given asylum on the basis they've been here so long.
Once the documents have been destroyed, it's incredibly difficult to return them to their country of origin. We don't even know what that country necessarily is, and the country will say, well, if you can't prove they came from here, why should we take them back? So there we are, we're stuck with them. And this is one of the things about it that makes you think, well, hang on a minute. Again, where did it say in the Bible, blessed are the queue jumpers? If people want to come into somebody else's country, then they should expect to go to get there by lawful routes. And if they don't do it by lawful routes, then applaud, as you will, their enterprise and their energy and all the rest of it. Who cannot? They've made a lot of effort to get here, but it's not a virtuous thing.
No. Well, that's a bit like congratulating the burglar for managing to pick your lock, isn't it? In
a way, though, I think a burglar is a more malicious person than somebody who wants to migrate to a country where he'll be better off.
I'm not sure that applies to all of them, though. I think some of them are coming here.
Some of them are, and some of them are undoubtedly saints, but we don't know which is which. This is
the bit that makes Welby such a hypocrite, because he knows that there are some people coming over as part of a criminal enterprise. He knows that some of them are coming to be enslaved in brothels and sex slave work and all of that. He knows that some of them are going to be brought here to be involved in illegal drug dealing. He knows all of that, and yet he says we should still let them in.
Well, he's a bit more subtle than that. He has discussed efforts to try and reduce the people arriving by boats. He's not wholly against any efforts at all. He's opposing this particular government bill, but I wouldn't write him off as a complete and utter let everybody in person. But what I object to in his behaviour is his invocation of the scriptures and trying to say that if you don't agree with him, you're not Christian. I mean, he may be right. On the other hand, I think his interpretation of what it says in the Bible is at the very least questionable.
Yes.
And I think you should be careful about doing that, because there are Christian people who take a different view.
Yes.